I'm Brittany,
I'm Maria.
and welcome to the Be More podcast.
Hi, how are you? We didn't really talk beforehand because Brittany had technical issues
Sorry,
as
doing
per
some
as
stuff.
per usual.
Wait, okay, I go first. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm good. I'm just like organizing my place. Like I finally got the energy to like deep clean.
So proud.
Thank you. And now I'm like organized. I have trading cards, obviously, because I'm a child. So I'm like organizing my trading cards. I don't know if you're gonna recognize any of these characters or like even recognize who I'm actually wearing their shirt. So like I don't know if you're
Oh,
gonna know any of these, like Dragon Ball.
yeah, Dragon Ball Z, I know.
I'm literally wearing a Dragon Ball Z shirt. That wasn't by like, I wasn't planning this, but I'm like randomly just organizing, which is like make me feel better.
Love.
Yeah. How are you? How are
Little
you
little
feeling?
bursts of
Of energy? Yeah.
endorphins and dopamine from
Mm-hmm.
doing those things. Yeah.
Yep.
I've been on the same kick of like tiny little cleaning things, and I think it's because I've been like cleaning and organizing my studio room and like doing a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of that. I have to tell you though, so I didn't finish watching it, but I started watching it and started kind of remembering because I needed something.
Uh-huh.
Dan was gone yesterday to do his football draft and was gone most of the day. And while I like to have something on in the background while I'm like doing stuff, so
Same.
I put a Goofy movie on,
Oh,
and I watched
yes.
like I didn't watch that. I watched like the first half of it before I got like too distracted by the tasks at hand and started getting up and moving around and had no idea what was going on at the end. But started to remember a lot of the
The plot.
and the
Yeah.
characters and like the premise and everything, which is really funny. And I was like, I know why. You want to know? It's funny. I 100% know why that's your favorite movie. Max is like your alter ego,
Yeah, he is.
the personality of a teenager. Like that's Maria,
It
you guys.
truly
But
even before I got into like teenage like years, I was like, oh, I can identify with
relate with this. But I mean, I think right now I'm just in the. I feel like I'm in the eye of the storm. Essentially, I feel
what kind of
like
storm we talking
things
about?
are calm, just like
Oh, okay.
my life, like with like my professional life now, because I'm like really skeetering off and doing something completely different
Mm-hmm.
than the path that I was on, which I'm really excited about. But the first few days of getting into everything was like a crash course of like, here's a million things you have to do by this date, and that
Right,
date
right.
was like 5 days away. So, and I think I have a handle on a lot of stuff, and I was talking to my aunt this morning, and it was we were talking about like I don't feel I'm excited because I know I'm confident in my capabilities to do the things that need to be done going forward. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like it's just so the anxiety comes from like okay, here's the 700 things that you know that you need to accomplish. Like I was that person on the first day of school, especially in college, when a professor would hand out a syllabus that was like here's everything that's going to happen and all of the things that we're doing and when all of your assignments are due by, I would have a mini panic attack
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh,
because I'd be
being
like,
just
"Oh my god,
overwhelmed.
I'm responsible for all of these things. Like I have to do all of these things." And
Mm-hmm.
I love that because I love to-do lists and I love tasks and I love all of that, but the anxiety comes from the fact that like not that feel like I'm not capable of doing it, but I don't know all the things that I need to know to accomplish these things and it's not done yet. Like I get anxious from those two things.
Right, right, right. And it's like the first week, so you don't know anything.
Right, so you
Yeah.
don't know anything, but you just know that all these things have to get done and then you look
Yeah.
at it later and you're like, "Wow, look at all the things I did." But that
Mm-hmm.
gap between like this is why I over communicate expectations to people all the time because the gap between when you know what needs to happen and it actually being accomplished is terrifying grounds to have to walk through
Mm-hmm.
or like to anticipate. So my anxiety is a little, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
good, happy, angsty anxiety.
Yeah, not the
Um,
stressful. Well, it is stressful, but like in a good way, not like the bad.
yes. So, and my therapist thinks that I'm good and was like, look, just check in with me in a couple of weeks and we'll see if you need to go back to sessions. I don't think that this is anything that you don't have have control over.
That's
I was
good.
like, okay, cool. Sounds great. So I'm
Nice.
feeling that. I'm feeling the change of weather in my allergies because I woke up 2 days ago and literally was like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I couldn't breathe. That was really fun. Um, I feel the overall, I feel like that transformation of like seasons changing into fall, I feel like I'm feeling super hard right now because it's a parallel with like a major transformation that's happening in my life. but
That's
exciting.
always, yeah. Every time like the seasons change over here in Jersey, my body's like, get ready.
Yeah, because it's
Like,
intense stuff, man. It's already
yeah.
dropping to like 50 degrees at night. Like that's a huge transition
I
already.
know, and like this is the time where I'm just like, here's my depression hole. So I'm like trying to like clean everything, I guess. My brain's just like,
You
you
know,
need a
you are
clean.
nesting for depression right now. That is what you're doing.
Yeah, without me like consciously
Hysterical.
knowing, like just consciously knowing that I'm doing this to myself, but I think I'm prepping for the eventual like
Yeah.
my background here will be still fine because this isn't like the cause of everything. It's like my kitchen and my bedroom,
No,
you
no, no.
know.
Yeah, I get that. I
It's just
totally get that.
like here my body's just like figure this shit out now so you don't have to
Yeah.
deep clean while you're
No,
depressed.
having that understanding of those, that's a good thing. I'm gonna eat a banana because I'm starving.
That's fine. I don't think I have any other updates. Well, no, I when you were talking about the Goofy movie actually, I also got like one of my coworkers to watch the Goofy movie because I was talking about it, I guess, because I'm going to like Disney, and then she started watching it in her cube while she was working. She's like, "Look what I'm watching." I'm like, "That's absolutely ridiculous." So I'm glad I got two people to watch the
I
Goofy
have to
movie
tell
in the
you
year
though,
2022.
I first of all, classic. And it's funny because there was, oh, what was it? There was something that they in the oh, it'll come to me later and I'll bother you about it. In the very
You can tell
first,
me.
in the very first scene, no,
Yes.
but okay. When Max wakes up and like is on his way to school and he's rushing to school and he's late,
Mm-hmm.
I can't put my finger on it. I'll have to rewatch it again and like say it to you. There's something that happens during that like huge transition of him getting to school that they make a reference to. And I was like, wow, that reference is all the way from like the early 90s. Like, I didn't know that existed before we were kids. And I can't think of what it is.
Is it on his way to school? Like he's already
Yeah,
out the
it happens.
door?
No, it happens between when he leaves the house, like when he's walking to school and all that stuff is going on. It happens
Yeah.
then. Like one of the kids does something, and I was like, oh, I didn't think that was a thing before we were born.
I'm thinking about the
Watch
kid
it
that he
again and
helped.
bring it. I don't
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the kid that he like helps up or something. Someone gets like bullied. I feel like
know.
he helps a
I just
little kid. I think.
it's like
But
a
anyways,
cultural technology thing. It must
it's
be.
probably a cultural
But
reference.
okay, so here's the thing.
I do love the
He,
Leaning Tower of Cheesa, if
I
you know.
agreed. That whole his whole character is funny.
Yeah.
The the thing that ruins movies for me, and the thing that I have to remind myself that it's a movie, when you go too far into the world of psychology,
Hmm.
sometimes you ruin like movies for yourself
Oh yeah, I'm sure you do.
because you know what I mean? And like
They're psychoanalyzing every
because
character by
at the
accident.
very first, so if you guys haven't watched a Goofy movie, I'm not gonna give away any spoilers, but like I
It's
can't
a
believe
good movie.
I'm literally going to psychoanalyze a Goofy movie right now. But in the very first instance that I was like, okay, I can't, I ruined this for myself. When Goofy tries, this is literally a sentence I'm saying seriously, and I can't take myself, like I can't believe I'm saying this. But when Goofy first tells Max that he's taking him on the fishing trip,
Yes.
like that from that point on, the movie was ruined for me because they didn't communicate with each other.
Oh, you're so funny.
Like what he really want, like what each of them really wanted and what they were feeling and all of these things. So because if you think about it, 99% of the conflicts that we 100% honestly I can probably say this of the conflicts that we ever deal with, whether it's in a story or real life, are because we're not communicating things fully, especially our
Yeah.
feelings. So like that was the moment where I was like, well, this is why. And then I was like, their whole journey is going to be that they actually talk to each other and tell each other their feelings and blah 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 blah. Like it ruins
Hmm.
those things for me. And I do that in person all the time too, where this never happens with you because you're on the same page as me. But if I have a conversation with somebody who doesn't have that like psyche awareness and
Yeah.
have gone through enough case studies of like psychological like
Hmm. Whatever, what have you.
experiences,
Hmm.
I will jump to a place that that person is nowhere near and saying like this is why this is happening. And you have like, it's so hard to pull back the reins. So I even to my psychoanalysis and the fact that I'm a nutcase about overanalyzing things literally even boils down to watching a freaking Goofy
Disney
movie.
movie from the 90s. That's incredible. Good for you.
But I did enjoy it. I think I love Max's character, all for him.
I I
And
love
when
that
I
movie.
realized who Flash what, like, all of it was just,
Everything was great. Everything is so good. And just
it
even
was
like
a solid nostalgic moment.
with Pete, even them, I'm just like,
He's
oh,
the
you
best
guys are
character.
great. Yeah, I love them.
That goofy sidekick is always the best character.
Always. Good old Goofy. And
Especially for
Roxanne, the whole thing with Roxanne. I'm like, Max, you're like 12. Calm yourself. So funny, so funny. So I don't think I have anything else to add to that.
it's been what, like 2 decades since that movie came out, and
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
so many of the social things are still
it's still relevant.
norms. It's so interesting. Anyhow,
An
um,
extremely goofy movie is also in my top 10, but not my
oh, I
top
didn't
three.
even realize that was a thing. Uh,
There's a sequel when
to
Max goes to
relate
college.
this, to relate this to the fact of I can't even believe that this is still a thing,
Yes,
in a not so nice way.
yes.
So I got a text from a good friend.
Hmm.
We can talk more details of names and things
Yeah.
post recording, but I got a text message from a friend of mine who was like, "Look, I know that you're often in this area, and
Uh-huh.
this situation just happened to a friend of mine." So, and it's something that made me so sad because it's just a norm thing, but and it's an I can't believe this is still happening as a thing. But this person was at like a shopping center with her mother. And when they were leaving and like walking to their car out of the shopping center, the girl noticed, well, the woman, she noticed that there was like this car circling the parking lot, this minivan circling in the parking lot, and like
God.
got on her radar. And she was like, this is weird. So she goes with her mother to their car and they start loading bags from the car. And the mother goes to bring the cart back, like what a good Samaritan, like going
Yeah.
the cart back to like the cart corral, right?
Right.
And
The bar is very low, people.
she was sitting in her car waiting for her mother to come back, and she noticed that the second that her mom got far enough away from their car, this minivan like booked it towards her mother. So
God.
she like whipped out of the spot and literally like almost hit her own mom because she had to, like pulled her car in between the van and her mom, and the car like had to, like they almost got into an accident and the van just like took off.
That's oh my God.
So
That's like
she drove
human
to the
trafficking right there, y'all.
she drove right to the police station, and the police were like, this has been happening a lot lately,
That's
especially in this
awful.
area, because not even like, not even necessarily kidnappings, but like robberies and things like that, um,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
which sucks. And they were like, we took down all the information, but it's the suckiest part of all of that is that even to this day, how nothing can come of making that resolved.
Because
And
they're just
like
evil people in the world.
even with all the cameras and the technology and the abilities that we have, it's still possible for nothing to be no resolution to that situation. And not only is it, I think that pisses me off, I think the most, like with everything else in the world, especially COVID being a perfect example of this, you're physically safe and nothing actually happened to you. So the police can like
Dismiss
write
it.
it off as it being fine, but the amount of trauma that you're dealing with emotionally,
Yeah, yeah.
that never goes away, and there's never going to be a resolve or resolution for that, and there's no support offered. Like, why in the police stations when these situations are being brought in is there not some type of psychology support team that sits there, like, okay, you go in and you give your statement, but then you should be able to get some type of psychological support.
Well, that's the whole like that's part of the sorry, the
You're good.
um defund the police stance. Like it's not getting rid of the police, it's putting the resources into social
Yes,
workers, into
yes,
psychologists, psychiatrists,
because
whatever
it's,
the correct term is, to have them in the station or wherever
yeah,
that place may be, so that instead of just like
no,
stop, I'm the police, like it's like, oh, like also are you okay, like do you
right.
need any extra resources and help or
I mean,
whatever.
and it's ridiculous when you think about it because there's so much evidence that has proved that criminal behavior is the response to prolonged exposure to something emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever, some type of
Traumatic.
psychological response to something, right?
Yeah.
So what if we were to be on the preventative side of that, and anytime something came up like that, we need the I'm sorry, I'm not about to go find and chase down a criminal and deal with somebody who's trying to rob me. I understand that. I think that the police need to be there for all of that, like the detective work and all of figuring that out.
Yeah, yeah,
In that
I
realm,
I
great.
don't think that defund the police people, myself included, say I don't need police. It's more like
Correct.
we need the police, also other things. Like,
Right, right. It's not just about the police, and not it's not just about their stance against crime being the only stance on and the
hmm
way we manage crime. But
hmm
wouldn't we be able to prevent so many things from happening if people, I mean, that's a general blanket statement for the world, like wouldn't we be able to prevent so many things from happening? And this is like totally idealist
hmm
perspective, but I mean, they just came out with a show that I'll probably never be able to watch on Netflix. Did you see they have this show where they speak to all of the death row
I'm a killer.
incarcerated? That, I guess, yeah. I don't know what the name of
Oh
it.
yeah, I've watched like seasons 1 through whatever is
Have
ending
you?
season.
Is it super
Yeah,
interesting?
it's super interesting because it is stemming from a majority of them. I'm not saying all of them, but I feel like the ones that I remember, it's like, oh, my childhood was shit. Like, oh, blah 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 blah. Like, I wish I got whatever. But also some of them
Right.
are like, I have no remorse. So it's really just like either a
But it's
very like
still, that's
it
all
that's still a
psycho,
that's
like psyche stuff.
right. That's still like a trauma response from like, oh, I feel nothing because if I
Right.
do, then like I'm screwed.
So, so yeah, so that,
It's very heavy. I wouldn't advise you to
I,
watch it.
oh no, I probably would never. I feel I'm sad for that person having had that experience, and I'm
Of
sad for the
course.
fact that
hmm
nothing's going to be done about it. And apparently, from what I understand, that person was very already kind of on edge and had high anxiety about that type of stuff anyway.
hmm
Um,
And to have it happen, or
right. And now I can't imagine, like, ugh, like friends who don't understand the importance of therapy. That's an instance
that's an instance where I
where
go straight to the
you
therapist.
definitely need to get some type of support afterwards. If you needed like a good example of like, I don't deal with anything, like, no, if you deal with anything related to that, you should totally go. Um,
Yeah.
so the other thing that came up on my radar that I really should like search about more. Did you hear about the abduction in Memphis?
It's sad that I'm just like, which one's that one?
So full disclosure, friends,
Full disclosure, human trafficking is real.
yes, that
Number one.
I don't get any of my
And trigger warnings.
information from the news and trigger warnings. I don't get any of like the information that I know about things from the news. I 100% will casually get it. A, if I'm scrolling through Instagram.
Social media. Yeah,
B,
yeah.
if I happen to be doing a Google search and something pops up first beforehand. That's how I find out about my. Anybody else have? And do you have any other things that you other ways that you find about your current events, Maria?
No, you know why? Because like I should be a better person and actually look at the news, but it's literally just social
No,
media.
I just I can't watch the news. We'll come back to this.
Well, or like articles, or like like
I guess
actual
that's
like
true too.
But okay,
I
go ahead.
have like the little like they have apps on your phones where you can get like the updates on and like the
And
most
like
recent thing.
I do, and I still don't look at it. Like I had like the Apple News like just like on my side,
Yeah.
like feed or whatever. Like if I swipe a few like things left.
Sometimes like it sucks, and sometimes
Yeah, that's why I'm just like,
okay.
oh, I don't want to like. I'll just scroll through. I'm like, do I want to even look at the
Like you
headlines
really
today?
have to be. We've talked about this before. You have to be
Yeah.
really. There has to be some level of discernment in whether what you choose to take in, because sometimes you just need to
Mhm.
scroll, and it's the same thing with watching the physical news. I think what
Mhm.
I've discovered for myself is that what were we? Dan and I were just watching something a couple of days ago where it was really funny. Oh, She-Hulk. We'll have a whole conversation about this.
Yeah, you
I
texted
have
me
to get
about
to
that.
this later, but in She-Hulk, they kind of like make fun of the media and the way that they like randomly just turn anything to news and everything's overblown and whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't think I can watch the actual news anymore because it's so much of a visual stimulus that it's like physically painful for me sometimes to see some of the things that they show, which they do on purpose to like evoke emotion and fear.
But
But
then there's also, I'm sorry, I
but
have like I just scroll through like my news, whatever,
mm,
and like one of them, one of like the two articles that just article names that come up on my Apple News is like, can you eat white rice if you have high blood sugar? I'm like, why do I care about this? Why are they
I
feeding
can't.
this to me?
So backtracking a whole lot,
Yes.
I find myself like if I can see words, I feel like words can be there's not as much emotion necessarily attached to words, right? I can read headings and move past it. So I scroll through things that I think are important, and I don't know how. I think I saw this initially on Instagram, but oh, being female, I don't think, and as somebody who identifies as a female, I will never feel safe in this world. And
Right.
this was a shitty thing for me to read and see, but I think it's something that all of us need to have, a little, every once in a
Awareness
while,
of.
we need to have a little bit of that come into our life to remind us. Um, but in Memphis, Tennessee this week, a 30 or 4-year-old woman was, I'm just going to read exactly what it says, was forced into a vehicle while she was jogging near her University of Memphis campus. She was jogging when a man approached her and forced her into a dark colored GMC, and she was missing and did not return home. She's still missing.
Wild.
They have somebody that they are charging, but like, what the fuck?
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, even just like jogging, right? Like I even sometimes and like my neighborhood is safe enough in my opinion, obviously for me to just walk around for like 45 minutes during the day. But even sometimes I'm like looking. I'm just like, oh, like who's around me? Or if there's no one around me, should I be, you know, looking at cars that are passing by? There's always that fear.
The thought of this, I'm so uncomfortable right now. I think this is something that like I am generally just afraid of in period.
Oh, well, yeah.
But and this is why whenever I'm in a public situation, especially if I'm by myself and like say I want to go for a walk because I love going for walks,
Yeah, same.
I make sure that I expose as little skin as possible. Not that that should be my responsibility, but because I know people suck. And I will never wear, like, I try never to keep both my headphones in.
I have AirPods in, but they're like super low. Like super low where I'm like
I
I can
can't.
I can still hear around
If
me.
I do
But
that,
I
I
get
feel my
that.
anxiety like, whoa.
Yeah, because that's one less sense.
And my eyeballs are always like, boom, 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 bing, 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 like
Yeah.
looking everywhere. I, that sucks that that's the world that we live in. And I'm just getting past the point of where I no longer walk with my keys between my knuckles.
That whole thing. Yeah,
But I
that's such a
used to
response.
I
That's such
used
like a
to
college thing too.
aggressively walk. I know I did in college all the time. I used
Oh
to
yeah, well,
aggressively walk with my keys like between my knuckles. So for anybody who like is listening to us, like this pen, my keys are like here, and I'm Wolverine essentially.
so
I
there's
am
actually
ready.
a better way.
Oh, tell me.
Actually, it's not because when you punch someone, right? It's like I'm if for people not watching, I'm literally punching there, right? So it's like that. But like when you have something in between, it'll also hurt your palm. So
That makes sense.
people are
Like stabby,
this way. Stab. You just stab.
stabby,
This is a
stabby.
pro tip from the
I've
internet,
always
people.
said that
Unfortunately, we have to do this.
people used to one of the reasons that I like to wear stilettos over any other
Oh, is that it's a
shoe
weapon.
is because I it's a weapon. I can
Also,
easily use it.
there are unfortunately like keychains that are meant to like it's like, you put your
Yeah,
fingers
I've
through and
seen
it's like
those.
my sister
Honestly, though,
has.
if you think about like if I think about my keys too for my car with the little fob, like I can pop it out and just like
You can pop it out and probably just like
literally
puncture
having to
someone.
talk about self-defense right now because this is the world we live in. So just as a side note to come back to this, her name is her first name is Eliza. I don't remember what her last name was, but like
Mm-hmm.
I really just hope that she's found. And
Mm-hmm. Okay, somewhat.
this again, and just like you brought up, this is one instance that's actually being captured and recorded and shared about. And you want to know what makes me really frustrating? There was a point where like a lot of this really came out. You remember like when they were really talking about like human trafficking and how like there was
Oh
a
yeah.
proof about or like how Wayfair was involved and they've been selling people for years.
That
And
was a
now
conspiracy
there's
theory.
this information out about Victoria's Secret and all this sex trafficking, all these things that are coming out,
Victoria's Secret.
and nothing has been done because the people who are in power of all these things that are making money keep just
Are
making
making money.
hush. So this is still an important issue that's happening in our country. It's not just happening to women, it's happening to children, it's happening to men. Women just happen to be the major targets because, I mean, they're the
because that's what.
majorly exploited sex traffickers of, you know,
Mhm.
and sex workers like for our history. But are I just want to, it begs me to ask the question like, will women ever be safe in the world? And I know
Not in the patriarchy.
like the answer is no. Like that
Not.
it sucks that I know the answer to that. But like I can't believe that
Mhm.
this is shit that still goes on.
Let me edit my comment about the patriarchy. Not in the white patriarchy,
And you know
because
what makes go ahead, keep going because I could go on forever. I'm gonna
because
eat my banana.
okay, you eat your banana while I go on about the Philippines. Because pre-colonial Philippines, when the Spanish didn't invade us and all that stuff, all that fun stuff for like 300 years, we were there's no gendered pronouns in our language. When you actually really deep dive into Tagalog, there's no actual pronouns that we use. It's all just like they them basically, and that stems from pre-colonial times because everyone was equal. And then like gods and goddesses were all equal. Like it doesn't matter if you're a girl or a guy or like whatever. And the word bakla, which means gay or queer in the Philippines, comes from babae, which is female, and lalaki, which is male. It's just combined, so it's like an intergender thing. You're muted. Okay.
Love that though. I love that for I love so many things. First of all, why do gods need to be gendered to begin with? It's mostly an identifying thing. Like how do we else
Yeah.
identify them? But like just like a general question. But I think all those things are really cool.
Yeah. So like there were instances of no patriarchy. I feel like it was just like yes, the men were just physically capable. It wasn't like
Right.
anything demeaning to women because they were like doctors and like people of power. It just became like the Europeans came and were like God's a man
It
and
wasn't
like
even like I
all
really
this
don't even
stuff.
think that it was until we I think what you're saying about colonization when we
Yeah,
and if you think about the whole idea of the theme, the real intent behind colonization is just saying the difference between I'm a civilized creature and I'm a wild, untamable, beastly creature, right? Like that was the
that had religion. I think that
right,
was the whole
right. That and that
colonization.
well, that was what tamed you, right? But like,
Yeah,
if you think about pre-colonization and pre
that whatever that was.
like trying to consolidate and solidify the idea of what it meant to be like a community, like to define that with the church
Hmm.
involved, there was no there was no like at least in the way that I ever saw it when you talked about like do you remember Avatar
Yeah.
and you know how they like lived in their communities like in those type of situations in those type of like those are still civilizations so we'll call them that but that's pre-colonization right
Hmm.
like there was an inherent understanding where the women were the backbone of the community. The women
Hmm.
were the one who made everything function. They took care of everything at home, while the men went to go take care of everything outside of the community.
Right, because
And
that's just how physically
right,
the
and it
attributes.
wasn't like you're more important than someone else. Like
Correct.
no
Yeah.
difference of hierarchy in that. It was like we all have our roles to play, and we're all extremely
Exactly
important.
what
It's
it
just
was.
that the men do this and the women do that,
Correct.
and that I feel like I'll really change. There's probably so much more in the history of like what changed in when colonization happened, especially because we looked at God as a man, which probably did not help all of the situation. But
No, that hindered, I think, everything.
it it's such an interesting.
Like, what if God had a daughter instead of a man? You know what I'm saying? Like instead of Jesus.
Mm,
Because like, let's say God is the father, but
but
then what if he had a daughter? But
he
he
would
would.
never have a daughter because Adam had to come like you know what I mean
Oh.
like
Yeah,
it would
even
need
from
to
the
be
Genesis.
Eve and Adam would need to be switched, right? It would need to be that Eve was the first one here and Adam was taken from her rib. Like that's also another part of the problem, right? Like that's the immediate like we are from man, so we are therefore not
We're
good
also
enough.
following,
But at the
and
same
by
time, we are also God, so none of that makes any sense.
we're also following like the Abrahamic what are they called? Abraham like religions, whatever that I can't remember the actual like word that's
Um,
derived from Abraham, but um we're learning quote unquote air quotes here people learning about this through text that's been translated millions of times
yeah.
over and has just been edited.
So it's just unfortunate, but coming back to this
Mm-hmm.
this specific situation,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that bothers me even more about this is so women are substantially higher targets for these types of instances to happen, right?
Yeah.
To be like idolized for their physical sexuality and their physical, not even like idolized for their sexuality, idolized for the parts of their body that they have, literally. But then at the same time, and this is the part that scares me, and this is the part that it's like, how do you, higher powers need to address this, but women are still a major target and nothing has changed. It's just potentially gotten worse and more underground, and the fact that there's nothing that we can fucking do about these instances that keep happening. And at the same time, girls
Mm.
are growing up with, by the time they're 13, they're dressing like they're 36-year-olds and showing more skin, and things are much more just, I mean, I know what some of the midriffs of like strangers look like more than I've seen my own
Mid-
belly. So it, and that, like, that is a responsibility that like the fashion world needs to take ownership of, because, and I try to, and I'm in a very fun place with this with dancers,
mm.
because I want you to love and respect and be able to see your body, and sometimes you need to be in less clothing for that to be able to happen. But at the same time, we need to create a sacred space where that's allowed and acceptable. And then we also need to tell young girls, and I mean boys too, like younger people, that your your body is for you. And like when fashions are like, show your whole belly and wear your really short shorts, it sucks that we live in a society where you can't freely express yourself with your clothes, because your clothes potentially make you more of a target, because the society that we live in has all of this bullshit going on in the background. And I hate the whole argument of like, it's not the individual's responsibility. It's the responsibility of the systems who create what we have access to and what we're wearing, and the systems that can oversee what happens with these fucking bullshit things that are happening. Like, but how do you raise, right? How do you come into the perspective of saying, I need to raise children in this world, in this reality, and this is what they have access to, and I need to tell them, like, well, if you wear that, like, it's like, how do you?
I I I
So
mean,
happy I don't have a teenager. Like, I'm so happy I don't have a teenage child right
it's
now, because
really just like it's just like the input of whatever they're consuming, and
it's just like,
also the and by consuming I don't even just mean media, but just like the people around them, how they're growing up, like the input of
yeah,
that, and then the output of I'm just taking honestly a white man as an example in my brain,
yeah,
because there's a pedestal that they love being on that no one really gave them except for society, that they're
yeah,
just like, oh, if I do this, and we've seen this all the time with like a couple of, I can't remember these kids' names because I don't give a shit about them, but like these college kids that like are nationally known because they like raped a woman in college and they got away with it because they're like, I don't know, a white man, let's be real here, or like some college like athlete or something, I don't know, whatever the fuck. But it's literally the media and like the white patriarchy just perpetuating and keeping that bloodline alive, that is now
yeah.
having us as females fucking like a weapon at all times. Like having a weapon at all times. Like it's just like
It's
to
just
your point,
sad.
it is like just society's like something has to change, and things are slowly changing, but it won't ever go away if it is a
So
white patriarchal society.
is the
Because like I don't even want to get into the whole race thing.
oh god, is the I don't want to say answer because I don't think it's that simple, but is part of the, as I'm thinking about this as we're discussing it, is
Mm.
part of the way that we, it's not to the way that we come towards the solution for this is not to ignore the fact that all of this is happening, but and maybe not to like drop bombs on kids that have no understanding of any of this, right? But to be able to
Not literal bombs.
not literal bombs, like sorry, the emotional like overwhelm of being like, wait, if this could happen, you know what I mean? Like it's how do you explain the world that they live in without traumatizing them? Like it's so
Oh,
hard,
there's no way. There's no. There. It's
but it's like
we're past babying kids
is is
if they want to be real people. I mean,
I'm looking at
not
this in a
real.
my perspective, right? Is my responsibility to be able to say, or maybe not to be able to say, but to be able to create and then demonstrate, create communities where it can be safe to, like
Express yourself.
express yourself through clothing and wear what you need to be able to wear to be able to like, dance well, right? And demonstrate that myself, but then also very clearly express that there's a boundary and a difference between the community that we've created that is a safe space and the rest of the world. Like that's what I feel like the solution right? Like is there
Because
anything
you
else
have
that
to.
you think?
I mean, no. It really is just like
Boy.
you have to silo yourself into like the communities that you're in, and then like express yourself in those communities. But then when it comes to the general public, it's like a whole different. It's a whole
And
different ball game.
that's where the lines get blurry, right? Is because of
It's
social
just the world that we live
especially
in.
of TikTok, like
Yeah,
there
I'm sure
is no
people can't.
separation between that anymore. There's no
Right.
obvious separation between that anymore.
I'm sure people can agree that like you just as a female again, like, and I don't know if any other female doesn't feel the same way that we do. It's just like
Mm,
when you're alone, that's when I look like the shittiest. Cause like I don't want anyone looking at me.
yeah.
Cause that's just like a flannel, some jeans, and a hat, and like this whole situation. Like it's just like I'm not trying to. But then when you're with people, it's a whole different story. Because your mentality changes, where it's just like, oh, we can all be ourselves because there's more people around.
I guess I can
Because
see
then we can all defend ourselves if something happens, right? Because
that.
like it's just like that's just the reality that we live in,
I just took a
unfortunately.
moment and I like realized that my shoulders were like
Like
this
this.
from talking about this, and I let like my shoulders just dropped like 6 inches when I intentionally tried to take a breath. Oh,
There's no solution now. I don't know if there ever will be, if like generations from now, whatever. It's just like the impact of colonialism and just like colonization and all that shit, um, has just been this.
yeah, but I'm sorry, but like the fashion industry 100% needs to take some
Perpetuates it.
responsibility for the fact that they're professional. Okay, so which brings me to this, right?
I think it's popular fashion because like when you get to like the
That's
haute
true.
couture and like
You're
the
totally right. Like
whole like
yes, because
whatever,
you
dude,
sometimes can't even tell if there's usually a lot of the times when you're looking at it as an art form, truly as an art form, it doesn't
it's
really
so
there's no
it's like
gender attached to it. It's just for the
exactly. It's
you
this
know what
like
I
the
mean?
fast fashion, what
Right.
they say, like the Forever 21s and like
Yeah.
the what you see in the malls, and not like you know like the department store mall, like it's the storefront. It's not like
Yeah.
Macy's or like Nordstrom. It's like Forever 21, Zara, like all that stuff.
So wait, have you I wonder if I can find it on my phone so I don't have to bring it up on my computer. Have you watched She-Hulk yet?
No.
In so many ways, and I vented all of this to my husband who like gets it but doesn't totally understand it because he's not a female. But I have issues. They do
Mm.
so many great, wonderful things, like very progressive things for women in a lot of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the foundational things that really pisses me off is, and it's something that, like, most of the stuff that we deal with
Mm-hmm.
is very, like, subliminal to the point of where people won't necessarily notice it or see it unless they, like, really see it.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is what they make Jennifer Walters look like, who is like
Is
her
she?
as her human self.
Is that?
Um,
I would assume that's She-Hulk. Like,
yeah, that this is
yeah.
the actress who plays She-Hulk. It's funny because like different settings make her look very different, but this is what they've chosen to make her look like. Okay, so ready? This is what they make her look like. And honestly, the actress herself is like gorgeous. She's got a beautiful face. But this is what they make her look like when she's She-Hulk. They make her this like raggedy, like they put her in like not fashion forward clothes. And then I take this personally too because like this is 100% what my hair looks like. But I mean, I can't. This is not a great picture.
Oh, she's the girl from Orphan Black. Not that I've
Okay,
watched Orphan Black.
so this is what she looks like,
What
right?
is she
I'm
wearing?
she's got her clothes are ripped because she was the She-Hulk like 2 seconds beforehand in this. But
Okay.
she's relatively short as a person.
Mm-hmm.
She's got. I wonder if actually it'll show you. Like if I type in as She-Hulk versus
Like her human form versus her Hulk
yeah,
form.
they like show them in like the comics, but they're not showing them like as that. So that's what she looks like. She's rather short. She's
Mm-hmm.
got like really curly short dark hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um she's like not necessarily big chested, not like they cover up her
Yeah.
body a lot, right? Like she
Mm-hmm.
wears like frumpy clothes. And then they turn her into the She-Hulk.
Does she
Have
turn
you
into
seen
like
the have you seen
I've
like what they make her look like?
yes, I have. That I've seen.
She why can't they just show a single freaking I guess
Screen
Marvel's
grab.
doing a really good job at, trying to make sure that
There's no like copy or whatever.
like yeah, any of that stuff doesn't happen. But this is what she looks like. They
Her
long
screen.
they elongate her face,
Oh yes.
make
Oh,
her
I see what you're
taller,
saying.
her boobs and her butt are bigger, and she's got like a blowout.
I see what you're saying. Yes, 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 yes. I see.
And they
Okay, okay,
highlight
okay.
all of her like they change the structure of her face. Like they make her face
I see, I see, I see.
different. They
Yes, 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 yes. I couldn't you know what, when I was looking it up on my end, I couldn't pinpoint where you're going with this, but now that I see it,
I can't tell you how angry it makes me.
yeah,
And
because like
like Dan was like, well, they make when he was like, and I get this. There, I was like, why? She's so much bigger. Like she's so much taller. And Dan was like, well, they make the Hulk bigger. And I was like, there's no comparison to what when you look at what he looks like when he's his human self. He literally, when he's the Hulk, just looks like a massive monster jacked version of himself. Like there's nothing that's
you can't tell who the human form of Hulk is.
correct, right?
Whereas you can
Correct.
probably tell that, oh, that's the lawyer that I just dealt
But
with
not
yesterday.
even that. Like they hyper sexualize her body when she's the Hulk. She's supposed to be a terrifying, scary monster thing. Like why did she? They tried
What
to
is
make her more attractive. Like and the ways that they chose to make her more attractive, which is literally all the stuff that we talk about with what they do to Barbie dolls. They gave her a tinier waist. They gave her bigger hips. They gave her bigger boobs. They gave her a longer face and more like Barbie doll futuristic faces looks on her face. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, the hair pisses me off. Especially because they make it seem like she has short, curly, unmanageable, frizzy hair, and then they give her a blowout. Like, and that's what's supposed to make her more socially acceptable because she's green. But if you make her any other color skin tone that's like a normal person and that any human being could be, she looks like a fucking Barbie doll. That's not what you
mm.
think when you think a Hulk. And that all
I
of
think that's just superhero like lore, isn't
it
it? Like
doesn't matter though. It makes me mad. That
no, no, no. I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm saying like that's just what they do, don't they? They just like when it's a guy, they can be all rugged and whatever, and they also just like look the same pre transforming and post. They just have a fucking costume. Whereas if it's a woman, it's just like, oh, here's a skimpy,
and that's my point.
outfit. Here's like
It's both.
whatever.
But they didn't it's not even the outfit. They literally changed her physical features.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right, which
And
is the worst part. Because
what
it's like, oh, it's just showing girls like, oh, like
this
I
is
have to
what you
be a
need to be pretty
superhero.
and acceptable. That's what it's showing people. This is what you need to look like if you're pretty and acceptable. And I'm 100% on so many ways totally taking this personally because I am a short woman with curly, unmanageable hair. So that doesn't help. But at the same time, what message are you sending? And the worst part about it is they don't address it at all. So it's stuff that is coming at you subliminally. So
hmm
this is the stuff that I ask you, my friends. Are you awake to the fact that this is the bullshit that they do to women? And then when women start to meet those standards, it's not safe for them to be out in public by themselves because they could get abducted.
Because men get mad. That's what that is. It's just the
I
anger
just
that
can't.
men have when women are uh independent, strong. I don't know what the word is that I'm trying to think of right now. I think independent probably. Like
capable.
they don't care for the
Period.
patriarchy. The women that like don't care for the patriarchy, men have a real big problem with.
I just
Like those damn incels that are just like,
there is
I hate
very
women.
there's very little in this world that angers me to the depths, literally, of my uterus
Uh-huh.
than
Men.
all of these things. It's not
Men.
even, like, I don't want to generalize it and say that men are the problem. Like, are they?
I'm
Like,
generalizing it.
I
We have two
think
different
that
opinions right now.
I think d-
What?
so hard. I I think that it's so much easier. Men have been taught that it's so much easier for them to be able to live their lives blinded to things than it is women. And I don't think it's their fault. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of men who try to be better, even though sometimes it can be hard to do that. I don't think it's, I think it's a certain type of men. I don't want to generalize and say that it's all men, but I just, this is bullshit. This stuff needs to stop happening. And I don't, it's just so frustrating for me as a woman who tries to inspire and guide other young women. It's so frustrating for me because I I can say and do nothing to actually impact whether this changes or not. Right? I can't tell a girl, okay, don't show your belly button because that'll lower the likelihood that you're going to get abducted. Don't straighten your hair because it's not going to say anything about, I mean, maybe I can do that. I can do that and be
I
in
don't know.
fact that, like, I can be whatever type of woman I am and still be beautiful. Like, I can lead by example in that way and talk that. But there's nothing that I can do to help
I don't think the
further
whole
the safety of them as women. Like, that
I
sucks.
don't I also don't think that like telling girls like don't show your midriff is like gonna do
That no,
anything.
that's what I'm
Like that's not
saying. But
like that's also
there's
like
no
not a thing. Like even if you do or you don't, like
that's what I'm saying. That's the part that sucks, right? I can't say anything to for you to actually do that I can guarantee is going to make you any safer as a female. That,
no, it's just like it's a fact. It's just like
and I
it
can't say anything about it
whatever
to myself either, which is why I will always have that anxiety.
because literally like and this has been happening for fucking since serial killers were around, which is like the dawn of time. Like it doesn't matter who
Yeah,
you are,
because
what
you have
you're
no control.
wearing, what time it is during the
Nothing
day,
you can
where
do
you
has
are.
any control.
Exactly. Like they're gonna if men are angry at women, they're just gonna go and terrorize women. It doesn't matter what you look like. It's these damn incels. Like they're very driven by their anger
I
towards
am
women.
very driven by my anger too.
Yeah, but the difference is you don't really hear about women serial killers or women like killers because we don't act. Now I'm generalizing on women. We don't tend to act on that
Well,
violence.
I would say we find, I like I said, we are better capable of being able to manage our feelings, to be able to find other outlets for the things that we're feeling.
We just communicate. They just
Sometimes.
they just they just like are
I
angry.
am so sweaty from this conversation. I was not expecting any of this to, the gist of all of this, and this, I feel like we talk about, and we probably will continue to talk about a lot of stuff that we see that happens in the world that sucks. And because the whole point of raising the awareness and asking if you're awake to it is because, and just like the both of us, like Maria and I were very clear in saying how we do so much in our day that sometimes we things don't even come up on our radar. And the things that suck that don't come up on our radar, when we lose the ability to understand and relate and possibly adjust ourselves, when we don't see these things that are really important that are happening and talk about the bigger problems behind them, that's when you fall asleep. And that's when the the concern of being asleep is that you're not asleep and your life stops, or you're not asleep and things stop moving forward. You're asleep and someone else has control of the wheel.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
society.
saying? Right, exactly. So we want you, I want myself, and I would hope that other people would want to be awake to the things that are going on and talking about, the curtains behind the wizards that are causing all of these things,
Hmm.
and shine light on that, because that's the only way that we have any hope or possibility for things to ever get better.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I want to add anything to that. Yeah, I'm just gonna
Go
watch.
Like, I'm gonna wiggle away now.
I'm just gonna go watch the Goofy movie.
That's where I'm at. Yeah, now everybody needs to go watch a Goofy movie. Oh boy.
Okay, so I still watch She-Hulk though.
I know.
Like,
I mean, there is
like
a lot
that's
of
like that's
really
not
good things.
that's. I'll
Her
say that's not.
character, that's
Yeah.
the one thing that really pisses me off. But her character, very vocal. She is a woman. Like she's
I
ready
would
to
say,
do her shit. Like
despite that,
everything else about
despite
it.
that, the physical appearance of her and her transformation of her, I think it's important to support the female superheroes because that's what
Correct.
gets those
We're gonna
women
talk about
funded and all that stuff.
personality wise, love her to death. Character choices, love her to death. It's just that one. And then you wonder, right? Like, is that physical appearance of her being different a way to balance her out to make are they also making the statement that like no one would like her at all because she is a very strong, independent, and capable woman? So if she is also unattractive, then society would never accept her and they have to celebrate her in the show. So
you can psychoanalyze anything.
I know, guys. The moral of today's episode is that Brittany can find something to psychoanalyze in any situation, which is very true. But we're happy we're here, and maybe you're just like me, and you're like, yes, psychoanalyze everything, or maybe you're just like, girl, you're too much for me, and that's okay. I'll talk about other things. I can talk about Marvel superheroes if you want to talk about that too.
I can talk about
regardless.
I can talk about a Goofy movie or Dragon Ball Z.
Amen. We covered a lot of things in this episode, going from a Goofy movie to feminism,
to whatever this is.
We're happy you joined us, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Goodbye.